You cannot buy more demand. So you need to go searching for new channels, and you need to start searching before you have exhausted the channel. Otherwise, you'll hit this very big roadblock for your growth. You need to do two things constantly. You constantly need to exploit the things that are working, because they are going to fund all the other stuff, all the other experiments that you continuously need to run. But you cannot forget to keep exhausting what is working, because marketers are too often slaves of, let's try the next new thing. But if something is working, you need to double or triple or quadruple whatever you do, because you need that cash to put into new experiments to find the next kind of like oil stream that is going to bring you money.
Welcome to the B2B Playbook. We built this channel for small B2B marketing teams who want to drive more revenue for their business. Every week, we're showing you how to create more demand for your brand step by step using our 5Bs framework. So if you're time poor, resource strapped, but you still want to make a big impact on your business, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button down below so you don't miss an episode. Welcome back to the B2B Playbook. Listeners, as you know, we rarely have guests on our show. Instead, we select a few true experts who align with our view that B2B marketing is more about people, not platforms. Today, our special guest is Steffen Hedebrandt. Steffen is the co-founder and CMO of DreamData. DreamData is a fantastic B2B customer data platform that helps with analytics, revenue attribution, and activation. DreamData is a company that's been on my radar for a while now, and I'm a user of the platform, so I'm very excited to have Steffen on to discuss DreamData's own growth journey, how to navigate the long and complex buying cycles of B2B, and how marketers can measure and prove their impact. Steffen, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, George. Those are all some of my favorite topics, so I'm excited to dive into the conversation today.
Beautiful. Very excited to have you here. And let's dig right into it. Steffen, look, you've had a pretty wild ride, I would say, the last 5 years as the co-founder of DreamData. And as I said today, for our listeners, we really want to break down how they can better market when B2B has long buying cycles and prove that they're contributing to the business. But I'd also love to do it with real examples. So I thought how great to talk about DreamData's own journey as well. Maybe just to give our listeners a little more context, can you give us a quick overview of what DreamData is and where you guys currently are at in your own growth journey?
Yeah, so I think the short version is we're one of these classic venture-funded technology companies. That is, every few years we raise some money and lay out an ambitious plan, and then we try to execute according to this plan. So we raised our first money in the summer of 2019, what's called a pre-seed round, and then kind of pretty much like a 2-year cycle. We've been raising some more money since, luckily, because we've been able to execute on the plans of making the product continuously better while also growing revenue. Now, what do we do as the product, George? You can say there's three main outcomes. One is that we help our customers understand how they get customers. So that's looking at the deal step one. Where did these customers come from? How long did it take? Which channels worked, etc. The other thing is that we help them also optimize the activities that they're doing. Out of all the activities you're doing today, which of these are actually yielding revenue? Which of them is performing poorly? Which of them is performing great? And let's probably put some more into those that we can actually see that are performing quite well. So that is the traditional view of what we're doing. This year, we've started to layer on another level, which is you can say, an automation arm of our product. Because we know, for example, with LinkedIn ads, which of the money you've spent, like you bought 10,000 clicks or something like that, which of those clicks were actually the good clicks? We know that because we have tracked the whole journey and we know which of the accounts that you want. We can then ship that automatically back to the LinkedIn ads platform. So the LinkedIn ads algorithm gets smarter. So the next 10,000 clicks that it buys from you, it does it a bit more effectively. And we're right now trying to search for more and more of these automation cases where we can find a small use case that we know the marketers are doing every day, that we can let them go. They don't have to do that manually, but we can probably take care of it automatically instead. So I think that in a not so simple nutshell is what we do at DreamData.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of use cases. I've been getting a lot out of probably the LinkedIn side that you guys have integrated with lately, especially the LinkedIn reveal side. It's a little easier to view that data from within DreamData than it is the LinkedIn ads platform. And so it's been really helpful to try and see how your LinkedIn ads are impacting what seems to be a pretty long B2B buying journey. And that really segues into my next question, which is, look, B2B journeys are really long. You guys have done some research around that. Have you got some stats that you can share with us just on how long these journeys are?
Yeah, we do. I think that's one of the great privilege that I have as a B2B marketer, that I get to study the benchmarks of all our customers that are B2B companies as well. I think the general benchmark that we've put out is that the average journey takes from the first touch on an account until it's won 192 days. So that's your kind of 6 month scope. Obviously, then as the deal size and companies gets larger, the deal cycle, the customer journey time goes up even from there. And that also means, as we're speaking now here, just before the beginning of May, like any extra revenue you're gonna generate this year, you have to start the marketing activities right now, if the sales team is to have enough time to actually to win these accounts as well. On top of this, we've also found something like 62 sessions per deal, more than having 3 people involved in every deal that you win. So it's just a hugely complex landscape that you're facing when you're in B2B, and you need to be constantly present and trying to move these deals forward.
Wow. Okay. So that is a very long journey. We're talking about nearly half a year then. And it's not in B2C where we're trying to target everyone with buy now. That's not what people are doing for half a year. They're
No.
collecting information, they're researching. So do we need to move our efforts further, like earlier in the journey to influence that research phase? What have you guys found?
Yeah, I think this is a really good point, George. I think like a lot of B2B companies have been used to referring to the actual customer journey to what is actually just the sales cycle length, like from the point of time that the lead reached the CRM system, and then how long does it take to close. That's typically the 2-3 months time that the sales team would tell you. But what we can see is that the time that the accounts spent unidentified or just researching tends to be the same length or longer. So if your sales team says it takes us 3 months to win the deal, you're probably more likely looking at 6 months. And actually, in B2B, where we as B2B marketers typically tends to influence is in the beginning of the journey, when people are searching for solutions or trying to be convinced that they should be booking a demo call, or maybe trying to add a little bit of extra pressure on this account while it's in a sales cycle, which I think pose a fundamental challenge for us in B2B, because it's very for the sales team, it's very easy because they get the contract signed and they can say, we won this deal. But what's typically true in a lot of cases is that this deal didn't come out of nowhere. It actually took place 6, 9, 12 months before. And those were marketing touches that got them this account on the radar. So yeah, we as B2B marketers, we're just like naturally challenged to prove the value that we create, because our activities lie early in the journey, which is also some of the fundamental parts of what we're trying to describe at Dream. That is, no, the customer journey is not just from the demo call gets booked and the sales rep wins the deal. It starts with getting in front of the right accounts and creating demand and building success cases that they trust enough for the sales team to get that sales meeting booked.
And I suppose, look, we can't go out and try and create demand with so many different segments at one time, right? We need to
Mm.
have really, even in that earlier stage, I find you can have multiple touches across a particular audience to build that brand affinity, to get them to want to eventually buy from you when they have that need. What kind of activities are you guys maybe doing at DreamData to really try and build that trust for those future buyers within perhaps a new segment that you guys are targeting?
Good question, George. I'll explain you what I did, what we have done this far. But I was actually just thinking about, you guys in Australia have a very famous marketing professor called Byron Sharp. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yes, yeah.
But we had him on a live show just recently, and he talked about the concept of reaching as many qualified buyers as totally possible, as opposed to just going really deep amongst just a small selection of accounts. And I think it's in B2B, they have main data samples from B2C, but also some B2B. I think one of the things is that this kind of balance you need to do between going deep on one account, but you also need to constantly get in front of new people, like fresh people that reminds of those people that normally buys from you. Let me just start from the bottom of, let's call it a funnel. So typically, I tend to advise people always to build from the bottom. And what I mean by that is getting in front of people who are in market right now, that looks like the people who are defined as your ideal customer profile. That is typically your 1, 2, 3, 4% of the market. I know LinkedIn, they call it the 95 versus 5 rule. There's some people out there expressing an intent to buy your product right now. That is typically your search behavior. It's review platforms, and I think also marketplaces when it comes to technology companies like the HubSpot marketplace, the Salesforce marketplace, etc. Before you do anything else, make sure you get in front of those people that are the right people and actually out there right now. The problem, though, is with those people is that you quite fast exhaust these channels once they're all flipped on, because there's not more than this 1 to 5% that are actually actively buying right now. So that comes to the question then, George, how do we then get in front of new customers? And some of the pathways that we've been utilizing is that instead of it's right time and right people, you have to just move to right people, because right now they might not have the budget. They need to change role before they get the budget. They are busy with other projects, etc. So what you want to do is you want to be top of mind with them, even though they're not actively buying right now, because as soon as they switch into this in-market behavior, you want to be that name on the list, because it's a lot harder to become the second or third name on that list and still win the deal, because people tend to stick with the first brand that they have stored. I think that's some of what Byron Sharp's research also says. But what are we doing to do this? I think one thing is that we are running account-based marketing on LinkedIn, or utilizing what they call matched audiences. It's a functionality where you can upload a list of accounts that are these accounts that you want to be hitting. And then we run ads towards these and limit it by it being marketers. So we make sure that it's the right accounts and the right job titles that we're getting in front of. Then we work a lot with partners, like both tech partners and also agency partners. That might be your LinkedIn or HubSpot as tech partners. And it's typically marketing agencies that have customers that reminds of our customers that we then try to work with to get in front of their customers. And then I think one thing that you probably have also seen is that we do invest a lot of time of doing what we call social selling, which means posting a lot of content on LinkedIn. And this has really proven to be like a fundamental part of our go-to-market, because we're selling predominantly to B2B marketers. And B2B marketers, they do spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. The motion we got going there is that all of us who post, we try to exhaust the 100 connects you can do on LinkedIn per week, and trying to do that towards ideal customer profiles. So over time, we have this engine running of us connecting with more and more of the right people. And then somewhere between 3 and 7 times a week, we post relevant content in front of these people. So little by little, they get sucked into our funnel of this Dreamdata world. And again, yeah, this awareness doesn't translate to money right away, we know, but the journey is going to be those 6 to 12 months. So we need people to be aware about our product and solution before they step into this buying cycle. I'll just brief George, and if there's a question you want to put in there, let's go for that.
I was going to say, you guys must have the data to show that strategy works as well. Look, that's exactly what we do for our own business. We work with a lot of businesses to help them do that. We know it works too, but it would be fantastic to look in at your platform and see that works. And of course, it's not going to be able to capture like every single touch point, but it gives you those indicators, those signs of life, that strategy that you're implementing is actually having a return, albeit I think you had more research to say that it might be 6 months down the road, right? That demand that we're creating now will not actually turn into that one revenue maybe 6 months to a year from now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's also this thing about where marketing sits. Though we can actually prove a lot of things with data, there's also still this intersection for marketers that it is somewhere across between data, art and science. That kind of, you also sometimes you need to lean in with your gut feeling initially, because and then you have the lacking indicators of whether actually demos get booked and sales pipeline and business being won afterwards.
I imagine for you guys too that social selling has been like an amazing way to create that feedback loop for the marketing team and probably also for the sales team between those potential customers and your business, because
Yeah.
you're at the coalface every day, right? Interacting with B2B marketers. Has that
Yeah.
been helpful?
Yeah, it's been incredibly helpful. And I think you need to do it like in a dual motion, that you can sometimes be like a little bit broad topical in what you post about. But if you want to see business coming out of it, you also need to you need to do product marketing and display what it is that our product do in an interesting fashion. Whether that's like doing a video where you show how the product works, or it's a screenshot, or it's something in writing, you need to think about how that's possible to do. I think one thing that is also worth noticing here as well is that whatever post that you do, it's actually a constant, as you say, it's a constant experiment with the market. And once we see certain posts take off virally, then we actually have a confirmation that this post is actually top quality content. And what you can do nowadays with LinkedIn ads is that you can then turn this into a thought leader ad. So you put whatever post that you had that you know is working. Say you had a post that worked well towards accounts, that if you have a matched audience of accounts that you're not speaking to right now, you want to be speaking to them, you just put that thought leader ad in front of them. And those things you can actually measure. So you can join the not so measurable with a very measurable tactic afterwards.
Actually, that's a great point. Yeah, when you use LinkedIn ads for distribution and thought leadership ads, you're right. You can tie all of that together. That's fantastic. And look, so that's a fair bit of information about what you're kind of doing to create that future demand for your business. In terms of starting at the bottom of the funnel, which is something you recommend all
Yeah.
businesses should do, what did you guys do out of curiosity to start at the bottom of the funnel? What did those kinds of activities look like?
So there's a two-step. There's when you have no money at all, and then there's when you have some money.
Yeah.
We started out when we had no money to do. We started out with writing every friend we had. We started out doing webinars because the three co-founders of us have held good positions before, and we have some skills. So we started to invite speakers to join webinars with us. And the content itself became our marketing, that people wanted to come listen to us together with an expert of some sort. And that is a close to no cost activity. We also, I don't know if you're familiar with something called growthhackers.com. It used to be a really good forum where they used to do like a weekly digest of the best growth ideas. And I think we had 3 posts going into that weekly digest. So I kept trying to write interesting posts that explained our technology, and then battled to get that ranking best of the week. But then that got circulated out amongst all these B2B marketers or growth marketers, which then gave us more inbound demand. So there's scrappy tactics, and once you then have a little bit of cash, then I highly recommend Google search ads. Not in a broad search term kind of way, because we can see on a lot of our customers, if you go broad on Google search, you're just wasting your money. But for any industry, there are some search terms that have a very high correlation to it being super high intent demand. So just switch on the most narrow descriptions of what your product do, and you'll start seeing some people come in. Once you start seeing which of those words work, I would definitely also recommend writing pieces of content that is minded at grabbing the organic traffic coming out of Google as well. So that is one thing. Like when you do have some money, collect, put it on the high intent keywords. Another close to no cost tactic is the review platforms that is available. When we speak software reviews, it's typically your G2 or Capterra, where you can just collect reviews, and then you have a ranking on whatever category you're in. And the more reviews, the more you go up in this category. So you actually get in front of people who are out there buying right now, just by making sure you collect reviews from your happy customers. And the same thing, it's a little bit the same game with these particular tech marketplaces. If you're a software company, HubSpot has a really great ecosystem. Pipedrive have, Segment has, Salesforce have. And there's different mechanics where you can game those ecosystems to get your company showing up. And yeah, that could be a good tactic as well.
Fantastic. I appreciate you sharing those early days, especially from the point where you don't have money. And so much of that comes for so many businesses from effectively those founder-led sales. You're leveraging your own network. Then you start to reinvest the money you get from that, or you get some other funding, and then you can invest more heavily into those platforms like Google search ads.
Yeah, I would maybe perhaps one advice before you start anything, you need to write down what's your ideal customer profile. You not do that because otherwise you're going to be firing in all different kind of directions. And I know it can be hard to actually, or painful to do it because you have somebody knocking your door and they want to buy, but you can just see it's the tech fit is completely wrong, or they want a feature you don't even have, and you can just get derailed by following people that are not fitting who you're trying to target. But it is so hard to say no to business when you're new, but you have to write this down because that enables all the other ideas. The decisions become so much easier. We have our definition of the ideal customer profile, so we can do XYZ things. We shouldn't be doing these things over here because we will not get our ideal customer profiles coming through the door. And a small trick here can be to start writing down your antithesis to the ideal customer profile, because it can be sometimes it can be hard to say, okay, it's these guys, but let's start making a list about who it's not, because then you can at least, as soon as you see them, say, okay, it's not these guys. And little by little, you get more and more narrow in your description of who should actually be spending your time on.
And I think you're right. Documenting who they are really adds those positive constraints and is something that you can get everyone on board with, because it's not just marketing who needs to know that, but it's everyone. It's product, it's sales, it's development. Like everyone needs to know who we're building for in a very specific way.
For us, it's an alignment throughout the company. Who's marketing trying to attract? Who's sales trying to sell to? If CS have to salvage customers, if product is building new features, like all of it has to align towards the kind of same direction of this ideal customer profile.
Fantastic. I love that. The fundamentals, so many people don't do them, and it makes your life so much easier when you do. It's fantastic to hear that you guys live and die by that too. So,
Mm.
we've spoken about you guys creating demand and capturing demand. And at what point did you guys realize that it was time to move away from the bottom of the funnel and start investing in marketing that influenced buyers earlier in their journey? Was there a point where you looked at your data and said, you know what, we're starting to exhaust the market that wants our product right now. We need to start getting in front of more people. Was there a kind of turning point or a flashpoint there?
And not like particularly strong, but I would say for those of you who run Google Ads, have an impression share, and you can actually see how much you have exhausted a search term just by looking at that. So if the 4 or 5 keywords that are really working for you is at those kind of 70-80% impression share, you cannot buy more demand. So you need to go searching for new channels, and you need to start searching before you have exhausted the channel. Otherwise you'll hit this very big roadblock for your growth. And I think that it's called the B2B playbook. And I think one of the things we really need to talk about is you need to do two things constantly. You constantly need to exploit the things that are working, because they are going to fund all the other stuff, all the other experiments that you continuously need to run. But you cannot forget to keep exhausting what is working, because marketers are too often slaves of, let's try the next new thing. But if something is working, you need to double or triple or quadruple whatever you do, because you need that cash to put into new experiments to find the next kind of like oil stream that is going to bring you money. So it's a constant like duality between keep exhausting what's working and keep doing small experiments to find the next kind of oil that will drive your growth.
No, I love that. And as you said, what's working right now is going to fund that next stage of growth for you. And there's no point in getting distracted, moving away from something when you haven't exhausted it and tried to get
No,
as much out of
stay.
it as
Yeah.
possible. We say that to marketers all the time. We talk a lot about demand generation, but we say, listen, marketer, before you give up on or pursue demand generation, and you're running lead generation, check if lead generation is working for your business. If it is, and the way that you're doing it works, fantastic. Keep doing
Yeah.
that, right? If it's working for your business, if it's allowing you to grow sustainably, you don't necessarily need to change what works. Now, look, lead generation means a lot of different things to different people, and how
Mm.
people do it differs. But I think as a general rule, that certainly applies.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your weekly live events. You guys have been doing them for a while now. What's the strategy behind that?
Yeah, and I think the lives is that's a good example of just testing stuff out. After the summer, we'll hit the 2-year mark of almost doing weekly live events on LinkedIn. So just to explain what it is, we almost weekly we have a guest come on together with somebody from DreamData. We have a conversation between 30 and 60 minutes. Some of the things we've learned is that it helps if this person has a big reach, so you can borrow the network of this person, or that this person is a prospect. And I think plus one of those two, plus the participant should also be able to be a good communicator, so that the conversation becomes digestible and the people listening can enjoy it as well. But we've then now we've at scale now we do it once a week. We then we do a lot of content recycling loops here. So the conversation, if good, of course, it goes into our podcast library. We create a blog post featuring the same, let's say, B2B celebrity that we can then, if we are happy with the blog post, also ship to our newsletter list. We also create small video snippets that we share with the guests. So the guest can then go to LinkedIn and share this blog post or this video snippet as well. We run them as a company event from our DreamData profile, so we can track the participants inside of DreamData. But you're also then allowed to do retargeting on LinkedIn because people clicked attend to the event. It's a very soft touch for our sales team if there's a topical thing for their prospects to just say, hey, by the way, our CMO is meeting like Chris Walker. You want to listen to the conversation, go here to attend. So it's become somewhat of a content backbone for us that we every week we have interesting guests joining. We create awareness because sometimes it's 500 or 1,000 people that are watching live for an hour, which is great. And then we get to tap into the network of these speakers who joins us as well. And then I think it's also about standing out and differentiating you, George, that we don't want to hide behind our computers. We actually want to show these are our employees. They're genuine, good, kind, smart people. Whereas there's others that just prefer to sit and type text post or do graphics and post that. So we want to be authentic as well in the way people can actually see who we are.
It's wonderful for your engagement for sure. And I love how you're using it also like in an account-based marketing way as a content collaboration with people that you'd love to work with as well. I'm quite interested in how that evolves for you guys. So you use that content collaboration with someone that you think would be fantastic as a customer of DreamData. What does that kind of relationship look like beyond the podcast? Is it like now that you just have a warm connection with that person, you explore, is there any need for DreamData? What do you guys do there?
I think we're a bit of we're on the softer end of this way of going to market. We're not that kind of cold calling you. Let's have that conversation. Let's book that meeting. I think it's a more like organic development of if you sense that there's a typically the clients would or the prospects would say themselves if there's something right now. If not, we just connect with a few of the colleagues, and hopefully that kind of content spiral will start to pull you in at some point. Yes, so far we've had a very inbound driven approach to to go to market that has its upsides and downsides, but we've been successful so far. Could we be missing out on a sales meeting here and there? Yeah, we probably could.
Fantastic. Now, that's very interesting to hear. And I noticed probably one hire that you guys have made recently in that sales department is Laura Erdem that
Yeah.
you guys hired internally. And she's obviously quite influential in our space as well. Is that going to be a strategy moving forward to keep bolstering the sales ranks as well, but also salespeople who have that keen understanding of marketing like Laura does?
It's funny, but Laura is actually she's been here. If I'm not mistaken, this summer it's 4 years. So she actually the whole kind of social game she's built while working here. So she's gone from somewhat 2,000 connections to now more than 30,000 connections, and most of those connections are B2B go-to-market people. And I think it's been extremely impactful because you don't just build a channel like that overnight, But when you do, then it becomes a mode or a kind of, it's hard to just copy because this actually takes posting or multiple times every week to actually get that following. So it's a very simple but hard way to grow your business. But it's been working for us, and we try to make it part of the how a salesperson think. If they would like to do less cold calls, then put out great content on LinkedIn, because then you can pull them in that way instead.
It's a much warmer way to approach people. I think it's a much more modern way of selling, and I think you guys are doing an amazing job at it.
But in some ways, George, I think you're right that some call them creators or influencers or whatever you call them. I think it'll become a continuously bigger part of B2B companies go to market. It's been hitting B2C hard the last 5 years. But if you think about it, particularly when these people don't just have a following, but they maybe also have a website or a closed forum or a newsletter list. These newsletter lists are highly curated because these people are speaking about the same things all the time. And if you find people that are speaking, let's say for us, about B2B go to market or B2B marketing, the people that have subscribed to that newsletter list are exactly people that are interested in this. So if you as a company pay or collaborate your way into this newsletter list, the impact you're going to see from that newsletter list is going to be super high compared to going in front of a cold audience on LinkedIn where you don't know what people are interested in. So I think it is a very interesting way to go to market, utilizing these audiences that has been built over time on specific topics. And I think it's still a bit of a wild west market where sometimes you can strike a really good deal, and then others are like, you must be kidding me. I'm never going to pay you this. But there are like pockets of really good attention out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Laura was probably how I came across Dreamdata in the first place, actually. And I mentioned to you before we jumped on this podcast that I've seen you guys around for a long time now. I think I first came across you because of Laura. You guys were the first time where I've had someone come to me and say, hey, we'd love to come and chat with you on the B2B playbook. And you're the first company that I said, you know what, I actually really want to talk to you. And because of that, now you have immediate access to our audience who I think could probably all benefit from Dreamdata. At minimum, the free tier. I would encourage everyone who's listening. Here we go. I'm saying it. I would encourage everyone who's listening to go and download Dreamdata. You will get something from it, at least the free tier. So this strategy works. And yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how it plays out over the next couple of years. Because yeah, you're right. It probably is a little bit like the Wild West at the moment.
Thank you so much, George.
That leads us now to really one of my final questions, which is how can marketers really justify their investment in these mid-funnel and upper funnel activities? And if you want to talk about how Dreamdata can help people do that as well, I think that's useful for our audience too. So please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm happy to, George. And I think that first of all, there's tactics that lends itself really well to measurement, and then there's other tactics that doesn't lend itself as well to measurement. So if we start by the big bucket of things you can measure, that is your ad spend, the clicks you're acquiring, do they move down through your sales funnel and become customers? This is something Dreamdata does extremely well, like ad spend, how much revenue comes out on the other side. That's our bread and butter. The same with like traffic you get from certain places, whether that's your organic search or your review platforms or communities that we talked about. All these things are very measurable, and you should measure anything you can here. And then as we move up, it depends on what you define as top funnel, but any top funnel that has a digital trace that could flow through your website, Dreamdata can cover. But there's also still like these very old school things like word of mouth, recommendations, etc., that no one is ever going to be able to effectively measure. Like, let's say we met at a conference and we had a conversation over a coffee and you recommended Dreamdata. That's never ever going to be like hardcore measurable. What you can do is a couple of things, in my opinion. You can make the how did you hear about us as an integral part of a sales conversation, the first meeting. hey, just to build some rapport. How did you hear about us? What made you come to us today? And some these anecdotes. If you don't have a sales call tracker, which a lot of companies have nowadays, the sales team actually need to carry those stories back to the organization to allow the organization to know what is actually working. I also recommend highly take screenshots of anybody recommending or engaging with your content or recommending your company anywhere, because that can be a qualitative proof over time that we put out this story, people started talking about it. We put out this story, they said they liked it, or we did this activity, people liked it. So that if kind of in a desperate day when you need to tell your CEO it is working what you're doing, if you have 100 screenshots of people that love your podcast or whatever it is that you have running, then there will be no questions whether this is effective or not. So there's a bucket of very measurable stuff, the quantifiable stuff, and then there's stuff that is hard to measure. And those things that are hard to measure, we need to do it in a qualitative way, whether that's screenshots or remembering those anecdotes that you hear, telling that to your company.
I love that. The qualitative aspect is something that I think so many marketers miss. Something as simple as you said, as screenshotting those comments, keeping it like in a bank somewhere, even trying to pull out key points from it as well and turn that into quantitative data as well is something that can be really helpful. Stefan, you've been so generous with your time. I love what you guys are building at DreamData. I'm finding a platform more and more useful as it develops. And look, thank you for building something that I think helps marketers try and get their seat back at the leadership table. I think we lost it a while ago, and it's nice to see we're trying to pull it back. Before we round out the conversation, is there anything else that you'd like to direct our audience's attention to, or anything that you'd like to add to the conversation?
No, I'm really happy about the conversation and your kind recommendations, George. But if there's any question that somebody who's listening to this wants to ask me, just connect on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to reply any question you might have.
Fantastic. All right, listeners, make sure you follow Steffen and DreamData. We'll have the links to both in the show notes. Steffen, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, George.